Hey y'all, it's Nova. Happy Friday! Today's video is essentially a part 2 for the Bistro table set video that we posted earlier this week. If you haven't watched it, the link should be somewhere around here. There was a lot of information that I had to make sure was in this video, and we had like so much footage for the chairs and for the table. Originally, this video was going to be 45 minutes, and I was just thinking that that would be way too long for you guys to have to deal with on our Friday, which are short days. So, hope you enjoy. Oh my gosh. Even this day that we're dropping off the curio cabinet.
I had tried to record when I got these 4 chairs and what I did to prep them, and that while I was taking the cushions off, which it had a back and seat, that I then found a crack in one of the frames, which I made contact with the owner of the chair, and she had a contact to get it soldered. So that has been done and it's been returned to me, so I'll continue on with spray painting it like I did the rest. I had already sanded and cleaned everything with steel wool, and then made sure I wiped down all the lint. Obviously, since this has been gone and transported and then returned, I'm going to have to do a quick wipe down. If I didn't already show, what I'm using on these chairs for the metal base is the Rust-Oleum Hammered Black. So as I'm checking them for their second coat where it needs to be, it's just a spot check. And I'm mainly looking to make sure no green is showing through from the previous painted green and brown stems and leaves on the back. But I am checking everywhere because I don't want any of the white to show through either. It's just that that green would be really obvious if it was missed. So what we used for this silver leaf is Rub and Buff silver leaf. And I didn't worry too much in the moment if I got some where I didn't want it, because clear wax removes any of those other kind of waxes. I'm going to take a close-up of the silver leaf and send a pic to the owner to see if she wants it on the back as well. The customer really loved the silver, and she does want me to go ahead with it on the back side. She doesn't believe that'll be too much, so I'll continue on with doing the silver leaf on the back side of the vines and leaves. But you've already seen that on the front side. That's not going to change. So we're going to set that aside, and I have already started trying to troubleshoot through the backs and the seat cushions. I know when I'm all done messing around with it, I'm going to put new covers on the back or the bottom of the seat. And while I was cleaning, then we saw this one that's really bad. I'm probably going to try to glue the pieces that are there and use heavy weight to get that to stay flatter. And then once we're all done with the tops and sides, whatever ends up working to make them look just a little bit more modern. After all of that's done, I'll put a fresh kind of like liner or dust cloth or whatever you'd call it underneath there, just to finish off the bottom edge better. I'm not so fond of this white trim because it's a black table with picture. The only thing whitish looking within that is just in a few small minor areas where when distressing the image back showed through, which I thought kind of brought a nice worn look to it, but this doesn't seem to be the same kind of nice worn look. So I'm not so fond of the trim that is on these back pieces. And I did troubleshoot through putting some silver leaf gilding wax on the edge of the vinyl to see how that would take. So being that this is a product that dries and has a good finish after it dries, it's finished product, that's what I thought I would try to see how it works. And it's not going to necessarily work because too much of it comes off. This is one of those things that with more time and the more curing time that goes on, it might get to a point where none of it rubs off. But if the next day, like this, sat overnight with it without, so you can see it's still coming off after letting it sit over one night. And that might be something that I end up doing. It still looks better than the white. Those are the two side by sides. And the thing is if you rub it down and rub the excess off and then keep checking back at some point after curing and it being on there, there's no more that's gonna rub off. So that's what we need to check to make sure that's gonna happen. And I was just trying to check to see if that would be a good way of kind of bringing this a little bit more visual appeal. But we still have to move on to seeing what we can do to make these a little bit more of a visual appeal. So I've done a little bit of research and found that some suggest using RIT dyes to add some color. It doesn't necessarily say that it will be full coverage or whatnot, but I'm not really wanting full coverage. I want some of this mauve to show through and be the undertones, or maybe even more in the center. I'm just trying to kind of add dimension to it. We're gonna try to get it to stay on here long enough to absorb some color, not full coverage, but just some color, just to kind of add some depth and dimension to these cushions. I actually am going to play with two different colors. One is a chocolate brown and the other is sandstone. And this might be too light, but I think I'll just start working it from kind of from the center out, or tying it in from the outside edge of the dark where I'm gonna put it on, and into the center where maybe to a point where there's none. And is how I'm going to apply it so that I'm not submerging the whole amount, is I'm actually going to mix it with some wax, just because the wax is a moisture that takes on color and then can be applied, and then it's kind of sitting there thick and moist, and hopefully 10 or 15 minutes in, when I start to wipe things back, there'll be a little bit of color transfer that stays on. It's just trial and error. One of the directions for vinyl was submerging it into the dyed water for like 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm thinking that we can always maybe do a test run on the bottom here to see if it's going to do anything or not. I think we're gonna wait 15 minutes and then I'll be back and we can see what happened. It's been longer than 15 minutes. I got distracted putting the silver leaf on the back of the chairs, and it's been like a half hour, 35 minutes. So basically, I guess we're just going to wipe this off and see what we have. I'm not seeing that any dye. Well, maybe the darker. I mean, obviously where the paper was, you can see the dye. But because of the wax sitting there, it does seem like that does look a little bit more, like there's a little bit more depth to it. The one thing from this test strip that I do know is I don't think I can go so far that I ruin it. So I'm going to just attempt to see where one would go. What I made up is not really going that far, and it's not even like putting on a thick layer. So I'm not sure. That's what I'm thinking, that even though trying to figure out a way of making the solution thicker so it sets there is the good idea, the wax being used as the substance might not be the good idea, because it actually provides a layer of protection on the vinyl itself. So I think Again, just seeing where this is gonna go. Give it a half hour, because maybe even an hour, because the last didn't do anything much after a half hour, 40 minutes. So it's actually been like an hour and a half. I don't know if you've noticed, but I have a hard time sticking with time frames apparently, because I can't just sit and wait for time to go by. I do another project, and then that lasts longer than I planned, and then I get back, and then it's anyway. So here is where we're at, is just checking out if any color transitioned on, and I'm thinking that it's probably not happening. So when you're first uncovering it, it seems like it didn't do anything. But when you put it next to one that doesn't have anything, then you can tell that the circumference has depth to it now. Okay, we're at the moment of truth. See how much I messed these up. And I don't know if any kind of moisture will just reactivate, or maybe just the wax. Now we look like we might be getting more. No, it's loosening up. Actually, which I didn't really want a line, but that means there's color on there. I went ahead and rubbed some of the dark stain wax around the edges of these. I'm gonna see if I can get off the excess now. Okay, so I looked it up, and the E6000 is supposed to be really good for vinyl. So I'm going to attempt to fix some of these things. Continuing on with the chairs, the liquid nails worked really well. This is now flat and secure. So I'm trying to figure out what would be best to be like a dust cover to make this look a little bit better underneath here so it doesn't look so unfinished. And I have different cloths on hand, but I figured just keep it simple. And I'm thinking about just spraying this on and then letting it dry enough to where I can trim it off with a knife. And hopefully then, since it'll already be glued down around to the edges, then when I trim it, the glue will be hard enough and everything stuck down that it won't be fraying the fabric very much. Okay. I used the flame on the stove to get the bit of the screwdriver hot enough to try to make the holes a little bit bigger. Now we need to try to do this to see if I can line them up.
Hey, thanks for watching. I hope wherever you are, you're staying safe. Bye bye.